In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Good morning. Oh, I think you can do better. Good morning. What a joy it is to be back in the cathedral after many weeks. The last time I was here was the second Sunday after Pascha. And that day there were 5 of us here, of the humans. There were about 10,000 angels that filled all the pews in the choir loft and were flying around because, you know, in the liturgy, there are always angels. There can be one Baba sitting in the front row. The church is always full, always, with humans and angels. Father Robert forgot to say that there was another birthday this week. Our country celebrated 244 years. That's pretty impressive. 244. But so young as a country. Hey, baby. The countries of the world are thousands of years old. The United States is still probably in its adolescence age as a country. And so we celebrate this land of the free. The ideals of trying to be the best that we can be. Are we perfect? Not even close. Are we striving through our history to become better and better? Yes. Do we fail sometimes at our efforts? Of course. Do we get really crazy and actually turn on each other? Yes. This weekend we celebrate the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, where 3 days, 100,000 men from both sides fought, and 50,000 plus died in 3 days. So we can have disagreements sometimes, and we can have them in a calm way, or we can shoot each other. I believe it's smarter to sit at the table and talk. And maybe our voices get loud, but we at least listen to each other and move toward the ideal that we strive for around the world. Trust me, no one has got it right yet. Look at the other countries. Sometimes they get crazy too. And so we celebrate our birthday joyously. If you were in this town last night, you heard a lot of stuff. And you were watching a lot of stuff. I sat in a backyard that had an arsenal of weaponry unmatched, I believe, in this valley. It was wonderful. Thank God we weren't shooting at anyone, just entertaining ourselves. But the reality is, for the last 2 weeks, people have been setting off stuff in the valley. Not as much as last night, but around 9:30, 10 o'clock, boom, 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 many times. You would think we're in a war zone. When I look out at the congregation today, I thought of Patriarch Athenagoras. Athenagoras was the Archbishop in America at one point and became the Patriarch of Constantinople. He was a tall man, 6'6". And when he put that black hat on, he was at 7 feet. And the Greeks at that time averaged about 5'4". You can imagine how he looked in front of them. And if you see pictures of this man with his people, he was a giant. And in reality, he was a giant of a man, in spirit and physically. And one of the things he said was, "Elate na kitachtume stamatia." Come and let us look at each other in our eyes. And right now with your mask, all I can see is your eyes. But I can see you. This is important. If you've read my encyclicals during this pandemic, I have strongly encouraged the priest to strongly encourage the people, but not mandatory, to wear a face mask, especially in close quarters. Bishop, you're violating it. Yes, but for me to speak through a mask is a little tough. And for your priest to chant the liturgy through a mask, he would be wiped out by the epistle reading, which today, if you noticed, talked about slavery. That's not a coincidence. That's just where that epistle falls in the calendar. And what did it say? St. Paul said that we were slaves of Jesus Christ. In some translations, you will see servant of Jesus Christ. Wrong. It's slave. The Greek is slave, not servant. You are owned by Christ. We are owned by Him. He is our owner. But I don't see us in chains. I see us as loving children of Christ. It means we owe something to Him as our Father. Some people would say that fathers acted like slave owners to their children. That was not my father. I never felt like a slave to my father. Did I respect him? Yes. Did I work in his restaurant? Oh, yeah. Did I get paid? No. It was a cheeseburger at the end of the day. And consider yourself lucky, he said. You're right, Dad. And so he said that we were slaves. It's not a bad word. In historical terms, from the very beginning, humans have done this evil to other humans. We even have it in our history, this young nation that's less than 250 years old, that fought a war 150 years ago to sort of end it as best we could. But if you really check the history, folks, the slaves came from the north. In the early 1800s, they moved them south because the laws were changing in the north against slavery. And so the owners moved them southern-wise. So it's a complete history if you look at it. Can we do better? Of course. We don't believe that we should have slaves. If you do, sit down with me one day and I will explain it to you. But I don't believe that what we're seeing in our country, in some cities, at night especially, is healthy. The destruction of our history, whatever it is, will cause us not to remember our history, and we will repeat it again. Now, do we need to modify things? Yeah, let's modify them. Let's sit down and talk. Some people will say the time for talking is over. Well, if you stop talking, you start shooting. And I don't believe that's where we want to go. And no one is innocent. Everyone has something that's not healthy. The only perfect one was this guy over here. All the rest of us have sins of different kinds. And so let's work to be less sinful in our lives. Let's work to be better people of the world. This is the greatest country. If you've never traveled outside the country, you don't know what's out there. National Geographic doesn't do a good rendering of some countries. Is it perfect? No. And you know why it's the best? Because all those other people in those other countries are trying to come here for a better life. That's why they come. Because it is free in most cases. But we're getting a little squirrely now, where we can't say what we want to say. Well, that's starting to infringe on rights, and that's why people fight back. And so until we figure this out, it's going to be tense. The next 4 months are going to really be fun if you like chaos. If you don't like chaos, and I don't think most people do, pray for God to extend his hand to calm the waters, to give us a sense of being, a sense of responsibility, so that we can express love to our neighbor. That's what Christ said to do. He even said to love your enemy, and that's probably the hardest thing to do. But we have to try to love the enemy. If the enemy doesn't want the love that we're trying to give them, then the monkey is on their back, not on your back, for the responsibility. Everything is going to be okay. In the end, if we do a good enough job, we'll be in paradise with God and with Jesus Christ and with his mother and with your patron saint and with all the other saints and the people who have come before us who were holy in their lives. We will see them again. If we don't do a good enough job, then we're not going to be with God. We're not going to be with Christ, and we're not going to be with Panagia or with our patron saint or the people that we loved. We're going to be in a place we don't want to go, and it's forever. So during this short lifetime, work towards paradise. That's your number one goal. Nothing else matters. Absolutely nothing should be better at your goals than that. A 401k with $1 million doesn't mean anything at the end. It's nice to have for your retirement, but after you retire and you die, then what? And if you've been watching the TV commercials the last 3 or 4 months, Lear Capital is telling us to buy gold, to buy silver. Okay, those are nice investments, but that's not going to get you to paradise. It's just not. And so we need to work toward paradise. If you haven't been to confession recently, set it up and go. These little ones went. They're clean for a little while. After our baptism, there is no other way to remove sins other than confession. To be with your priest in the church in front of the icon of Christ, confessing to Christ. You're not confessing to the priest. The priest is there to help you as an advocate. And don't be afraid that he's going to think less of you. He won't. He's got his own problems. Just go and get rid of whatever is burdening you. It's like taking out the trash. Just dump it all. Whatever sins you have, confess them and be done with them. And don't leave a few behind because you're embarrassed to say what they are. That's like leaving some trash in the bottom of your trash can and letting it rot. What does it do? It stinks. That means you stink spiritually. Don't stink spiritually. Dump it all. And then start fresh, like these little ones. I've always told people the best time to die is right after your confession. Right after. I mean, you confess your sins and you walk out the door and bam, you get hit by a bus. How many sins do you have from here to there? 5? 10? 20 if you're really busy thinking? And so go frequently and take out the garbage so that you can lift up your soul, so that you can live life in a better way, so that you're not held down by things that are complicated and you know they're not right, and still you carry them and you justify them. Don't. Just dump it and be free. Be like these little ones. If you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, like I have been for 55 years of my life, I became a Pirates fan at 6, if you can believe it. It's exciting. We're undefeated. It's July 4th weekend and we have not lost a game yet. How cool is that? They predicted by the July 4th weekend we'd be out 25 games this year. Wrong. We are undefeated. They're going to play 60 games, and I don't think it's going to be good. But I'm going to enjoy it until they start playing. And then I'm not going to turn the TV on. I see people that are not locals. I see people from New York City. I see Mr. Timko there. I see the Binks, they're here from New Jersey, and others who have come to be with their families, which is the most important thing, our families. In this difficult time when we're not supposed to hug each other and not kiss each other, can you imagine that you can't if you follow the rules? I went home a couple of weeks ago and I hugged my mother. Rules be damned. And I told her how much I loved her because I'd not been with her for months. And you never know when your parents are going to be gone. So today, if they're not with you, pick up the phone and call them and tell them you love them. You will make their day. And if you're fortunate enough to have your grandparents around, tell them that you love them. They're going to be gone soon if they're grandparents. That's just life. Don't allow the opportunity to slide away. Don't say, I'll take care of it next week. Next week, you might not be alive or they might not be alive. You never know. You could get hit by the bus after your confession. This is a great country. It's full of great people from every nation of the world. They are here. And if you know the history of this little town, there's like 20 ethnic groups here, including the Carpatho-Russians. And why did they come? For a better opportunity. They told them, come and work in the mines, work in the steel mills, you'll make some money. They didn't tell them you're going to be worked to death, but they came because it was a better life, a better opportunity, not necessarily for the adults that came, but for their children. That was the hope, that was the dream. And most of them didn't go to college, but their children did get a higher education. And then they didn't come back to the little town they grew up in because there were no jobs. That's what's happening here. At its zenith, there were people in Johnstown, less than 20,000 now. It's recovering, stabilized a little bit, but still it's going on. Because the children get educated and they go on to other things, bigger things. We're happy for them. And hopefully they remember us to call on the holidays. And why not every day? Every one of our kids has a cell phone. 99.9999% of them. If you got a kid out there that's not calling you every day just to say hello and see if you're alive, you didn't train them right. Force it on them. If they don't call you, call them. That'll drive them nuts. If I don't call 2 days in a row, my mom is on the horn with me. What's wrong? Nothing, Mom, I just didn't get to you. Like last night, I was watching fireworks till, 11, it's past her bedtime. I'll call her today. And if I don't call her today, surely tomorrow she will call. Just to see how we're doing, to have that human touch. Because if we don't have the human touch, we will not thrive. There are scientific studies that show that you have two babies sitting in a crib, And the nurse is taking care of this one by touching it and cooing with it. And this one is left alone. This one will not thrive. This one will do great. Humans need touch. They need communication with each other. They need to look at each other in their eyes. I looked at you twice today, right in the eyes. And you look back. I don't know why you just have to be in my line of fire. Don't take offense. We need that. We need that touch of each other. And if we can't be there physically, we can be there vocally. And with the technology now, FaceTime, you can look at each other and say hello and that I love you. So do it. What's holding you back? Should be nothing. Should be. Know that I love you, I care for you, I pray for you all the time. It is good to see faces again of human beings in the cathedral after so many months. Pray that God will put an end to this disruption in our lives so that we can get back to whatever the new normal is going to look like. Do the best you can with what there is. Fear nothing. Only God. That's what my grandfather told me when I was a kid. My grandfather was a priest in Greece. Yorgo min fovasi kanenan anthropo monoton theo. George, that was my baptismal name. Fear no man, only God. You fear God, that's enough. So let's fear God respectfully, not out of He's going to crush us, but respectfully because He's our Father. And ask Him to help us, and He will. Just like Peter walking on the water, as long as he was looking at Jesus, he was fine. The minute he got concerned about the waves and the wind and the virus, and we took our mind off of Jesus, ploop, right into the water. And he yelled out to him, Kyrie soson me, Lord, save me. When you're drowning, just say those words, and He will come to your aid. Don't be afraid. Live your life to the maximum. Be cautious of things, but don't be afraid. We'll be all right. And then next summer, in the year 2021, my Pirates will go for the World Series. Maybe. I can only hope and pray. Amen.